Hello. Well, some nice news, and I'm so pleased about this. EU fishermen, it says here, banned from electric pulse trawling as UK takes back control of waters after Brexit. Now, I was I was a lot worried about the state of the fishing industry, considering that there was going to be a 5-year transition. And so I imagined that meant that the EU would come in. I did mention it to my husband. I said, it means that they'll come in. They have no incentive to conserve the fisheries, and they'll just come in for 5 years and fish everything out, and then leave Britain with sort of deserted dead waters. But apparently it's not going to work like that. Even though the EU is being allowed to send boats in to British waters to fish, apparently now I see that Britain has more control over how they do their fishing. So I didn't know about this. I know about throwing explosives into the waters to stun the fish. Unscrupulous freshwater fishers do that to get salmon, I believe, and trout and that sort of thing. But here, this is used in the sea, and you send electric shocks into the seabed, which then scares the fish up. And apparently that's aimed at getting flatfish out, because, when you're trawling, when you're pulling nets along, you're going to be catching fish that are swimming higher up. But the ones on the seabed are more difficult to get hold of. So they send these shocks into the seabed, and this sends the flatfish off the ocean floor and makes them swim up. But it does other things. It's very powerful, and it actually kills fish that are further up in the water. Apparently it breaks their spines. What a terrible thing that is. Anyway, look, I'm getting all exercised about it here. EU fishermen have been banned from electric pulse trawling as the UK takes its first step in taking back control of its waters after Brexit. That's wonderful. Now, what I want to hear is all the people who are gung-ho for the ecology congratulating Britain on Brexit for saving the fish stocks, or at least saving some of the fish stocks from this dreadful way of catching fish. I'd probably have a long wait, wouldn't I? Right, let's carry on. The new law came in at 11 p.m. on New Year's Eve as the country officially left the Union. So, unbeknownst to nearly everybody, the government has been preparing for Brexit and has been preparing rules. I didn't know about this. I mean, we always thought they were just semi-competent and not doing just stumbling about, but they actually had this already for the changeover. And so as soon as Brexit happened, this law kicked in. No more electric pulse fishing. I think that's wonderful, wonderful news. Pulse trawling involves sending electric shocks into the seabed, scaring the fish up into waiting nets. It's a controversial practice because the method is aimed at getting flatfish, such as sole, to rise up from their burrows in the sand, making them easy to catch. Researchers found that it can be damaging to the surrounding marine organisms. Oh, what a surprise that is. And especially larger fish such as cod, haddock and whiting, and the shock from the electric current can cause their spines to break. Just how horrible is that? So you're catching a few sole and you're crippling hundreds of fish that then just sink to the bottom and suffocate. I mean, fish don't have marvellous nervous systems, but even so, that's just terrible. Dutch fishermen are among the main users of pulse trawling, and fishermen off the coast of Kent and Essex have previously complained that the electric trawlers leave unusually large numbers of dead fish in their wake. And nobody was listening to them because, of course, the EU, the rules, the EU says you can do this. So the British government, the various government officials just sort of held up their hands and said, well, what can we do? Well, now we can do something, and it warms my heart. The Pacific and Environment Minister, Zach Goldsmith, he's got a job at last, said there have long been serious concerns about pulse fishing, so it is fantastic news that we have been able to end pulse trawling in UK waters by EU and English vessels, safeguarding our marine environment for future generations. This is just one of the good things we can do to benefit our precious marine environment now that the transition period with the European Union has ended. Good. Government sources said they are exploring the option of following this action by banning European super trawlers, which have been blamed for vast numbers of dead dolphins washing up on British coastlines. On the British coastline, sorry. I was looking at the camera instead of the article here. The current plan is to set our own marine conservation rules for fishing vessels and ban any boat which does not meet these requirements. Oh, that's great. So we thought we'd have no control, but by making more stringent rules, we've actually got a lot more control than I thought we had. I think that most people thought we had. There are also plans to force all medium and large-sized boats to have remote monitored CCTV on board so the catch can be audited to ensure no endangered marine creatures are being caught. I think that's wonderful. Members, I'm sure you people in Holland and France and Spain, you might be feeling quite upset about this, but I have to say, the North Sea is really being overfished, and the EU didn't seem to care, and they've been making advantageous rules for the EU without really thinking about the ecology, and I think most of you will admit that, and it's always the case. And you know what, it's like apartment blocks and gardens. Now, Britain has a lot of houses with little gardens as opposed to apartment blocks and big gardens. And they did try the apartment block and big garden experiment. And they had all these ideas for wide lawns that kids could play on. And we all know what happened. Those wide areas, they turned into wasteland. They were very badly maintained. There was a lot of drug taking and illicit activities going on after dark, that sort of thing. Nobody took care of that land because it wasn't theirs. Whereas you go to the older houses, for all that they didn't have all the mod cons that the apartment blocks had, everybody took care of each family that owned a house took care of their garden. And that's what happens when you have personal responsibility for a little patch of land. You are more likely to take care of it than a communal area. And this is the same with this fishing thing. With the best will in the world, when you have a wide open field where anybody can come in, then there is less incentive for each individual group to worry about conservation. The British, they have the idea of that sea around is theirs. They are going to take better care of it. That's just human nature. You can make all the laws you want, but you cannot solve the problem of people being more careful about stuff that they have a personal responsibility for and that they think they're going to be passing on to the next generation. You see, that was one of the things that was wrong with communism, because people weren't the owners of their own accommodations, for instance, and they never took any care of them. It's the same with a public housing of various sorts that's very rarely taken care of by the people who live there because it isn't theirs and they're not going to pass it on to their children. That's what Margaret Thatcher was thinking about when she allowed people to buy their own council houses, because she thought if they did, they'd take better care of them. And they did. You could always tell. I've been around a lot of council estates, and you can always tell the ones where people had bought their house. There was always a nicer door there. There were just now, obviously, the people who bought their houses were in a better financial position, for sure. So there was a certain amount of self-selection there. But even so, there was a difference. And even in places where everybody had gardens and there was a bit of common land for kids to play, the common land was never taken care of and the little gardens were. It's just the way things are. That's why we have to get back to ideas of local communities. But look, I'm getting right off the subject here. The current plan is to set our own marine conservation rules for fishing vessels and ban any boat which does not meet these requirements. Members of Parliament welcomed the news and said the government should be pushing to implement more animal welfare measures as soon as possible. David Jones, the Conservative MP for Clwyd West and Deputy Chairman of the Eurosceptic European Research Group, said, "Excellent that DEFRA has banned pulse fishing in UK waters." DEFRA is the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, by the way. And a good example of the environmental conservation and welfare improvements we can make after leaving the EU. Now, let's stop live animal exports. Yes, that's been a big thing, and there have been a lot of people fighting to stop this. So, to stop sheep being shipped all the way from, I don't know what, Yorkshire down to Folkestone or wherever, and then across the channel in overcrowded lorries and on boats. And, can you imagine the terror that these sheep are in? And just so that the French or whatever can have their fresh meat. Well, they should stop that. It really is bad. Yeah, let's stop live animal exports. Daniel Kawczynski, the Conservative MP for Shrewsbury, added, "Good news, DEFRA has today banned pulse fishing in UK waters. So come on, you environmental experts, you hunt saboteurs, you eco warriors. Where's the celebration? Where's the congratulations? Where are the sighs of relief? I want to see that. I'm waiting to see that." Okay. Good news, there's banned pulse fishing. The EU is set to ban much of its pulse fishing in July this year, but the European Commission is still allowing 6 vessels to conduct the method after pressure from the Dutch fishing industry. I'm sorry, Holland. No, I don't like that. A DEFRA spokesman said, as the transition period has now ended, pulse trawling. A DEFRA spokesperson said, as the transition period has now ended, pulse trawling by EU and English registered vessels will no longer be permitted in UK waters. This will help to safeguard our marine environment and keep our seas sustainable for future generations. The government is announcing a package of animal welfare and environment measures to come into play this year after Brexit, including banning primates as pets. I don't know about that. Well, I suppose that depends. Clamping down on the shark fin trade, for sure, and bringing in mandatory cat microchipping. Well, I don't know about that either, but I'm sure I'll have to go into the arguments for that. But they certainly seem to be hitting the ground running, and I'm quite happy to see that. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.